This lovely lady, Margaret Fox, is a native of Northern California, growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and finding early inspiration for her poetry during visits to Yosemite, Clear Lake, and Redwood Kingdom, and during explorations along beaches, tidal marshes, coastal ranges of the Pacific Northwest, that we all know is just drop-dead gorgeous. Talk about finger of God, nature, miraculous. Early poems and essays were published in Calliope, a high school literary and arts journal, and in local California and Missouri papers. More recently, her poetry was published in the International Library of Poetry compilation, A Celebration of Poets, the 2017 Paul and Skill Poetry Project, Voices from Here to, the online, and I beg your pardon, and online in the weekly Avocet. Her first collection of poetry, Running Alongside, was published in October 2018. A second collection is nearing completion, and like Running Alongside, it will be the second collaboration with her two grandchildren, Cassius and Skylar, who are the most remarkable human beings you'd ever come across. Talk about raising your spirit about the hopes of our future, and these two young people are just remarkable. And it says a lot about Margaret. The fingerprints are all over them, who enjoy illustrating some of the poems and associating with the poets when their busy schedules permit. It gives me absolute pleasure. Miss Fox, would you grace us?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank everyone at Howland for hosting me and for hosting all the poetry events. And thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Hayden and Robert, for arranging the feature for me. It's going to be a very eclectic reading. We just finished a bunch of seasonal stuff, so I do have some autumn stuff, but a little of this and that, just to kind of show you where I've been kind of. This is the first poem I wrote after I retired 3 years ago, after being in nursing for 38 years. And everybody that knows me, I like to do visuals sometimes with poems. I don't like to explain every big word. I don't think we should have to, but in this poem I use the word chrysoprase, which is a color of green. It's in the Chalcedony family. And the this green is called chrysoprase, so when you hear that, that's what I meant. Okay, I brought a few copies of these, only a few left. They're in the back if you'd be interested. This is okay, so this first poem is called Sunset Over Mount Hope. Crushed on the horizon, dragon's sun howled, copper anguish exhalation. Fled from star flash down through strange green waves of chrysoprase, sleep bound. This is woodland harp. When you wake up and you see spider webs in the woods. First light playing over fine silver spider silk harp strings, dew-laden, still faintly resonating, age-old nocturne. If one will truly stop to listen, a sleepy oak wood music would be heard, winds from time past carefully captured along lines of splendid tensile strength, syncopated rhythm rises up beside the stretch of morning wakening. This is Hunter's Moon Ascendant. Diana stirs the tide within my blood to rising. Streaming stars of the heavens, her hair floats over ghostly branches where rests Hunter's moon. My heartbeat thunderous, one with the pulse of Boreas. I surrender to hunter's moon ascendant. Yes, I willingly would leave all this wild entrapped bird fluttering, my vagabond heart given freely should nighthawk require my bones. For now, Diana's hand enfolds my own. Her cape of cloud surrounds my secret self, lest in a weakness of despair I were to accidentally let her go. Cats, drowsing by dying embers of the fire, notice my return, turn back to dreams. My desire is to drop with hunter's moon, descend in silence to the chill horizon. Thank you. And this is a new hunter's moon one because I was just so in love with chasing Orion across the sky a couple weeks ago. This is a first draft, and I've never read a first draft, but I don't know if it'll change, but I'll read it. Hunter's Moon, for Heidi in Australia, running under southern skies, and for my sister Anna Karen in memory. These are all true stories, by the way. Hunter's Moon, 1, Fair Oaks, New York. Stepping into night, my hand raised against the glare of amber streetlight, scanning for meteors, shards of Halley's Comet. Let me start over because I didn't pronounce it right. Stepping into night, my hand raised against the glare of amber streetlight, scanning for meteors, shards of Halley's Comet, visible in deeper darkness, eclipsed by radiant Sirius. Orion striding across the slate sky follows Hunter's Moon to the western hills. 2, Point Reyes, Northern California, when the sun fell and fog stole Hunter's Moon. If only in dreams, someday I will run again through total darkness, the coast trail over Limatour with Anna Karen, led by Heidi, who found the way for us, through the eucalyptus corridor, past Sentinel Cypress, peppery wind swept back to the youth hostel. Night so close it poured down around our faces, stars so near we could hear the whispering shimmer. Meteors like swift bees filled the meadows of night sky with lights of blue galena and gold fire. Heidi taught us how to fly, unafraid, to see by scent, by the sound of the grasses bending. She laughed about the tree roots reaching ominously for our feet. Then we were airborne, gliding down a final hill to our beacon light, where we laughed our farewells. We cherish forever the spell of that magical night. This piece is a 4-part piece. It's like the first memoir type stuff I wrote, but only the third and fourth part are that way. The third part is when I was 3 years old and my security blanket was lost, and the fourth part is and the fourth part is when my sister and I were in our sick beds, and this goes back a few years when they still had glass thermometers with a little mercury, and when they would drop, you'd go scramble for the treasure. Quicksilver Reflections. 1. A labored drone from the old furnace drowns the deafening silence. So at last my rustling papers seem but dry leaves, wind displaced. My sneaking footsteps only branches creaking as I leave this place. Breath held like a dagger to my own heart, escapes gratefully. A door shuts behind me carefully. I have gone into the drowse of morning, dressed for winter, bundled all the way up to the tears. Tree sways rooted in years of fallen leaves. Wind scours away foundation, abode and breath. Gray sky descends with ageless ceremony. Trunks bare, slowly dying, witness to such deadly tribute by blooms of softest moss. which creep inexorably into the heartwood. Subtle death. 2. We walked outside by starlight. Starlight stirred with cloudy blue slate darkness, and I spoke aloud to Blue, but softly, grateful for his company. "Where's the moon?" Wisely, he turned from the foolish question, running along the deep tracks of snowmobiles. Starlight would suffice for guide. "Orion," to my own ears sounding wistful, as if that tiny belt of stars were an old friend. No, I watched instead the protective stance of clouds around our window to the Milky Way, which glowed and breathed above. The Milky Way, I thought, with love, stirring in a broken heart I'd thought too full of holes to act as cup. "Pleiades," I called, but softly, as to little children drowsing, easily startled. Blue Dog stopped and watched protectively, suddenly understanding. 3. The child so small, the heart so strong. This disappointment, as it would be called, must be weathered for the little storm it was, that's all. In time, forgetfulness would come. Her security blanket had been lost. The move to the new house imminent, remembering her big tree in the front yard. It must be there. She ran to find it for herself while the truck was waiting to go, but no, not there, so left behind. 50 years later, she thought with dark suspicion, perhaps it had been culled like bad grain from all which had been chosen and carefully packed to save. 4. We watched from our confinement, from our sickbed, each long hour to its end, drank our tea or apple juice as medicine, accepting such provision from our mother with bad grace, but grudgingly, yet truly grateful for her loving kindness and her company. Quicksilver waited, her cold form confined as we, but for indefinite time. Her glass enclosure was, we mused, so curiously named thermometer. Still, our fevered faces must attest to her most accurate measurements. Propelled by some wayward movement of our clandestine play, a slender missile launched to the ground. Glass was breaking. How we leapt from our sick beds, gathering around Quicksilver. Quicksilver flew with newfound freedom, urgent flower in bloom, scattered silver spheres as seed to the corners of our room. I'm going to mix up the seasons a little bit because that's the way the seasons are. One just crashes into the next one. So this one is part of a longer poem. It's called Reluctant Spring. There was something about the movement of massed green-black hickory leaves thrashing under evening's sudden gray light inundation and the rising wind. Something about how a lightning pulse, still distant, filled the sky with brilliant flash like sun glare in the vast night. No need to act as breathless sentry, noting arrival and departure of the storm, or the clattering rain which soaked tenacious moss and tempered slender emerald grasses into wild proliferation. Understand such thunder as could easily implode the glass of window watchtowers, reaching deepest roots of secret primal caution. But it is nothing to huddle in a safe burrow, waiting, to miss entirely a lightning strike near the mountain crown, welling up through tears in the fabric of the air, ancient magic, tang of ozone, and earth scent rising from rain-drenched stone. And here's one from Here's one from one of the last gales we had, the gale force winds. And it was uprooting trees. I lost the tree in the process, but I thought I wrote a few notes, then I went to sleep, and I woke up like a snap in the middle of the night with this line, just for the name of it, Night of the Gothenburg Gale, and I had no idea where it came from, so I wrote it down and went back to sleep. There are 2 places in the world called Gothenburg, but I thought it was it transported me from Goshen, which we just came from a reading at Ted's, transported me from Goshen to Gothenburg. I went into another time. Night of the Gothenburg Gale. Oak leaves clasped in the wild wind's great hands, hurled to the ground, surrounded by tatters of cloud-covered sundown. My carriage, soon hard-pressed to hold a smoothly forward course, jolted, fled before the rising storm, brave horses shouldering my terror into every turn. Dark trees leaping from their roots, snapping ancient moorings, strained to a Franz Liszt Mephisto waltz to fall below the waning moon. And this is my reaction to summer ending abruptly when the road crews came and shaved the wildflowers away. Summer ending. One dire day, the road crews ravaged wayside meadows, shaved away a wildflower verge, plundering deep mint nest, resting in a hollow place, surge of primal incense rising, lost into the ethanol blast. Gone blue sky chicory, petals shredded rose in clouds of silent shrieking, settled for the sake of the nude ground down, weeping tender tears of color consolation. Shaded rise of fortunate maples, sighed green requiem for a devastation of junipers fallen at their feet. Boughs bent and tattered, distorted, branches disarticulated, evidence explosion of bone. Respectable gardeners would not have pruned back to the skeleton itself. Quaking aspen whispered disbelief through every leaf. Chicory bloom, like passionate butterfly, lives a single day for the sun's embrace. Today exists but a memory, blue buds among the tawny grass, blue eyes reflecting heaven, and the dry leaf I thought to collect was a broken butterfly. Just summer ending. This is a little lighthearted. I'm writing the next few. I'm writing a series with the grandchildren in mind. They're not really like in baby talk or anything, but it's kind of like so they can understand too. It's called Cross Country Runners, but it's only part of it. It's more like a autumn themed thing. Cross Country Runners, autumn by the Kennebec River, Maine. My searching gaze reaches gray sky. Treetops scatter down from their crowns, vermilion and gold leaf, treasure for the taking. Though I covet more, copper sundown, the sound of hot blood pulsing to fingertips of the cross-country runners, pounding of their feet through the evening like heartbeats. A young girl piggybacks her little charge to Park's edge, shakes her into wakefulness, calls, "Cassandra," smiling when with a whistling imperative from lead runner the pack streams by. Dogs bark remark with every passing. Birds again begin their chants to celebrate this amazing day. Though I wonder where they have been as I sifted the stillness while I wrote these words of great moment. For answer, the crow calls, ha ha, and ducks in time look up and matter of fact, quack. I know it's silly. It's silly. This is called Tale of the Mouse. Swift, soft apparition looks my grandson in the eye. Field mouse sitting in the kitchen winks as he goes by. Mouse steals my notes and papers, helps herself to years of souvenirs. She took sheet music, magazines, and bits of books. My own little hoard of greeting cards has been transformed to rainbow dust. I want to be stern, but laugh I must, for sentiment and signatures form gray matrix around her nest of many colors. She curls up on her bed of letters, rests her head on weighty matters. This is also for the kids. They have had two dogs, Blue, who was in the other poem, and Ghost. And they were, this is called Some Differences Between Dogs. Ghost, head lowered, patrolled the periphery, deciphering cross tracks in wet grass. Blue tackled porcupine and skunk in play, to his great dismay. Stoic Ghost stood steadfast when geese overhead fled. Blue laughed up to the stars, waiting for the crow moon to slide out of hiding. Ghost knew sunrise from the quiet of first light. Blue would concentrate and tried to catch the moon for me. And this is a poem about Ghost called Autumn Ramble. Ghost was gladly up to his knees in grasshoppers, wading hip deep through brown waves of drying grass, amused by his happy predicament. Yes, dogs do quietly laugh. His placid glance seemed more a secret grin, as space surrounding his every step was percolating with prodigious leaps and pattering rain of grasshopper feet. This series of a few, these are autumn poems, a little sad, but the first one kind of will set the mood. I had a change of mood myself about how I view autumn, not quite so depressed, because it's just a natural thing. Autumn. Once I walked, restless as the changing season seemed to me. Eyes beheld the death within the leaf and not the promise of the seed. I thought about pale lichen on the gray stone, glow of life continuing when autumn flowers have gone. Then understood the sleep within the bare tree. Roots hold secrets which will in time explain the mystery. Thank you. I think that's my favorite of any autumn ones that I've written. This is called Luna Moth. And I don't know if you know about Luna moths, and probably other ones too, but Luna moths are born unable to eat or drink anything. They're born just to find another Luna moth, and then Luna Moth. Luna fluttered down between the fallen leaves. I found her there, the loveliest one of all. Her treasured secret pearls of ivory eggs were left in the keeping of a sweet gum tree. Luna's spirit lifted to be one with the breeze. This one is called Silence. Red Fox tried to hide, but hunger followed him down through his empty home below the ground. This final time he lingered beside the silent sleep chamber, hope for her a hollow longing, knowing he was alone. He left only his circling tracks upon the sand, when hunger nipped and chased him from the den and over the icy land. The end was swift. Disaster, some would call a mercy. Fox was flattened to a fiery ribbon glistening on the road, but for two pointed ears which were lifted still, as if in perfect listening. And this one, the grandkids were with me when Red Hawk came down. It's called Red-Tailed Hawk Remembered. Red-tailed hawk strives for the freedom of blue sky, drums dry leaves with broken wing and cannot rise. Ember eyes spark warning while surge of desperate motion guards the smoldering of life. Red-tailed hawk, the sycamore sentinel has fallen through the flare of fear to sanctuary beneath the elm, relieved of life, wings outstretched in dream flight. This is Turbulence of Moths. Seduced by street lamp signal fire, a turbulence of moths dance into the falling dusk. Flash and swirl of white lace skirts, flare to white flame, an instant of consuming passion, then softest ash drifts down. This is too sad. This one is called Como ça va être, How It Will Be. I leave you drawing lines in the sand. The wind-wild sycamore trail promised me kinder company. I join the ghostly Nape band. Everyone has dignity and place. Hunter smiles upon the gatherer, who admires respectfully the strength of the protector and the joy of sun and stars within the sacred space. This one, I just wanted to clarify, running with my wildcat company, that means when my cats ran outside with me, it doesn't mean like I'm a wild girl. Although, you know, it's called Pearls. And I don't know, I was looking through the window and I saw the moon, but it looked like pearls dropping down. I was seeing it, I guess, reflected through the water on the window or something. Pearls. Moon drops pearls for me, scattered down through my wait for dawn, while cats, attracted to my listening, rest near a window, watch moon go circling. Some cold nights find me fishing during meteor showers, running with my wildcat company, but not this night. Moon sails free from fishnet treetops. Pearls drop down for me. And this is a true story. Summer 1969. I was attending the University of California in Berkeley, and between classes I would take to the trees. I would just read or dream or whatever. And the bell tower, the campus bell tower called the Campanile, houses 20 tons of California fossils, which most Californians don't even know about. So the saber-tooth and dire wolves in the poem are really there. The 20 tons includes the Smilodon, which is the saber-toothed cat, which is the California state fossil. Dire wolves, which are about 25% bigger than today's gray wolves, giant ground sloths. And then these 40-million-year-old camels come up to here. And Dr. Jarema was a real medical doctor who decided to be my mentor for some reason. So, but that's just the beginning of the tale. So this poem is called When First I Met Dr. Jurema. When first I met Dr. Jurema, I was a golden leopard draped across a massive branch, my tree ancient as the surrounding Berkeley hills, pondering my own luxurious existence, 10 feet above his white head as he prowled below. I was lazy from sunglow pouring over me, like warm honey or the scent of sweet clover. I drowsed, glutted with French literature of the 19th century, in particular Madame Bovary. I had been provoked beyond endurance. Some self-ordained swashbuckler in my fencing class, unable to comprehend a code of honor, the salute, the bow, the dance of an en garde, who it was instead quivering like a taut bowstring, disrespecting the parry, prolonging riposte like a maddened yellow jacket who needs must sting again and again and again. So I fled the scene of such flush-cheeked bravado, escaped to open air, stretching back into my own significance. I left to mobilize the bones of the saber-tooth and all the dire wolves rescued from La Brea, who sleep in the secrecy of the Campanile. Gray sentinel bell tower, Campanile woke. Carillon bells invoked great wing beats and thunder drone of resonating rounds with syncopated sonorous tones, while arc of ebony vulture wing following the fog to Mount Diablo etched delicate harmony counterpoint echoes. When first I met Dr. Jurema, I was resting in singular contemplation of the cerulean deep, nestled in a rustle of leaf cover, always aware that he was there, his golden eagle eyes piercing through my pretense of sleep as I returned his stare. I dropped down through lingering dreams to the ground, held court from the shadow of my tree, imagining a cape swept to one side. When he actually bowed, allow me to introduce myself. These are, the next few are a series I'm writing about my years working in the operating room. I was 38 years. I had spent all my free time, my off-duty time with some of the patients. I got to know them and talk to them. And when I would lose them or I'd know that they were terminal or something, I'd spend a lot of extra time with them. And my way of processing the grief would be to write a poem. I never gave them one. The first few poems are very simple. I only brought a few. Let me see. The first one I wrote was called Sailing. I can understand the reasons for your leaving. Dreams which surged against the floodgates for so long. Now the reasons are carefully hidden one by one. Piles of leaves I hesitate to even gaze upon. What unreasonable melancholy autumn brings. One thing, how can I ever understand the absence of season when you were leaving and when you were gone? Oh, between when you were leaving and when you were gone. This one I wrote for a little 17-year-old. He and his friend had been involved in a MVA, a motor vehicle accident, and his friend, who was the driver, got killed. And Gregory, who was my patient, had, they were both drunk, so, and you weren't allowed to tell him what happened, but that's the first thing he wanted to know when he woke up. For Gregory while you sleep. Gregory, when you came to me at the brink of sleep on a restless sea, you asked of your friend, how is he? I had to lie. They didn't tell me. This one's for a patient who, he came in for chronic problem, chronic treatments. He was, every time I saw him for a new admission, he was more and more depressed. And I still try to cheer him up, and I think it's just like when you go, then the door shuts, and so he'd sit by the window watching me go. For Ray Rising. Sad sound, the rain at last to end a bitter day. Clouds descend, I go my moody way. The road for this traveler, not the high road to adventure, it may seem. I leave you staring at my retreat, tired beyond caring, down to the mainstream. Thanks. This is for a friend who had to be in an isolation room in his last days, and of course no visitors or anything. Nobody wants to come then. Isolation for Glenn. Dear little brother, quiet and kind, golden smile like sunshine. Just to breathe, this struggle steals strength, deadly thief. What words, kind sounds. I'm here. Did you say that, my dear? Or is it only my thought going round? Nothing clear to my eyes. Is this how we die? Just one more before I start to, just one more of that series before I start to blubber. This one's called Picking Black-Eyed Susans for a Black Mood Friday. And this patient had to go from Catskill to Horton for chemotherapy because Catskill didn't have that. So I followed him down. I worked at Catskill, and when I went to Middletown where I lived, I stopped to pick some flowers for him. And the urologist saw me, and it was for a urology procedure anyway. And they said, "Was that you picking flowers on Route 17, Margaret?" Well, yes, it was. Picking Black-Eyed Susans for a Black Mood Friday. William went east for chemotherapy. His room left spare and cheerless, swept clear of all but memories. I held up the empty doorway with my sense of loss, remembered how he sometimes held his breath as if for careful listening, maybe answers could detach from passing clouds, circle back, somehow restore his former strength. Always his gray-eyed regard was better than the spoken word. Hospital rooms, those loneliest of places when guests go and last light fades. Even the stoic might weep, hidden in that black silent weight. Harvesting some last sunlight, picking Black-Eyed Susans from the hill, I filled a jar for his table. His new room had a rooftop view. He watched the sun drop over the edge. Small spider, radiant yellow, crept from camouflage of golden flower petals onto the black center to bask in William's perfect gray-eyed regard. I'm sorry, it's just a little emotion. This one is called Turkey Vultures on Search over Castle Point, Minnewaska. My hands felt the greedy teeth of frostbite start to nip. I had remained too long watching the leading edge of a winter storm, willing it to overpower my stubborn fortitude. and strand me like the red leaves bleeding from the maples to the cold stone. 2 turkey vultures circled my perch on the white cliffs of Castle Point. Shadow of great wings of adamantine blocked the sullen sun. I followed their appraising stare. I thought maybe they could smell the ebb of life from my wavering hope, the corruption of sanity and stability closely following dying dreams, their first morsel to be shreds of my tattered dignity. This is called Recorded in Ice. Late autumn snowflakes fell. Crystalline scrolls upon a maple leaf edge tell of cold beauty, icy darts and spears which pierce the heart, wild joy and primal fear, our desire to march forward, for we walk with a memory of fierce white silence, following muffled footfalls of the long-lost mastodon, scattering ice crystals of our frozen tears, for all we have forgotten or for what we may recall.